Is it clear, Mr. Dian?
Yeah. First of all, could you see my slides?
Yes, it's on the ninth slide. Sure, alles klaar.
Okay. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank you to Sir Gustuli, Sir Sauter, and also Pak Tirta. Thank you for sharing your insights. Frankly speaking, I'm quite nervous to speak. I feel like standing in the front of my professor for oral defense. However, I will do my best. And first of all, I would like to greet all the participants. I hope all of you are in the good health and well-being. Allow me to share my ideas about the property sectors in Indonesia, namely from the legal point of view. Okay, could you see my slides?
Yes, could you please full screen your presentation, Mr. Dian?
Okay. Sorry. I cannot full screen the
Nicholas,
slides.
can you please help to assist Mr. Dian, please?
Please try using F5 to
Okay.
full screen.
Okay, you can start. The floor is yours, Mr. Dian.
Okay. Thank you, Pak Tirta. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to share. Yeah, this is my point of view about the property sector in Asia from the legal perspective, especially in the pandemic period during these times. So, actually, I have learned a lot from the sharings of Mr. Gusteli and Pak Tirta, and I am also a newcomer in the property, but I will try to give my result of my research. So when we talk about the property in Indonesia, the first questions that we have to put forward is the types of property. What are the property that would be necessary or required by the investors, yeah, private and also corporate investors in Indonesia, both from domestic investors and also from foreign investors. So in Indonesia, we have three categories of property are available. First, residential property like condominiums, apartment, and secondly, commercial property like central business districts. Like I put the picture of the SCBD in Sudirman. And lastly, the industrial property like economic exclusive zone. This is like a special area for investors from the government, provided by the government, whereby the government also give stimulus for the investors to make a greenfield or FDI investment in this KEK zone. Yeah, for example, like tax incentive and other economic incentives. When we talk about the property, it is also important for the investors, either private or corporate investors, to exactly know what kind of ownerships that they want to acquire for their business in Indonesia. We have 7 types of ownerships for investors. First, there is right of ownership. This is the highest ownerships, yeah, in Indonesian legal system. And secondly, you have a right to build, or we call as HGB. And thirdly, you have a right to cultivate. Hak guna usaha is mostly for forestry like palm oil, and then when you would like to have like tea plants, and then you can apply for the right to cultivate to the BPN or National Agrarian Board. And then fourthly, there are also right to use, hak pakai. This is mostly for the diplomatic offices and as well as also for international agencies and also for the foreign corporations. And lastly, there are three types of ownerships for a property, namely right to manage or hak pengelolaan. This is a special type of ownership, but it is only authorized for the governmental entities, like for example for BUMN, state-owned enterprise, and then for the government authority like Badan Otorita Batam and provincial government. And for most of the consumers, property consumers in Indonesia, they have also called as the right of ownership over stake units or hak milik atas satuan rumah susun. It is for the parties who are entitled to hold the land title on which the building is erected. This is primarily for apartment or like condominium. And last but not least, there is also customary right over land. It is also important type of ownership, especially for companies who would like to um, make their uh, greenfield investment in remote areas like in Papua, in Kalimantan, like mining coal companies and also for the oil companies. Now allow me to share what are the regulatory instruments that the property investors can utilize from the from the Indonesian legal systems during the pandemic times like now. Um, there are two categories of the regulatory instruments that the property investors can principally utilize. First, there are macroeconomics regulatory instruments, and also there is non-macroeconomics regulatory instruments. Macroeconomics regulatory instruments is the currently advanced stimulus policy for banks and non-banks financial undertakings like consumer banks, and it is issued by the Indonesian Financial Service Authority with the Ministry of Finance or OJK. However, I'm of opinion that this macroeconomic regulatory instrument is not enough for the property investors. Why? Because property sectors requires a speed, like Mr. Guste said, requires correct and also rapid executions. And it is also rapid and also stable financings for the projects of property. Therefore, I propose the non-macroeconomic regulatory instruments, which are consist of first, force major provisions, and then secondly, rebus stake stantibus provisions, and lastly, the real estate investment trust or REIT. With regards to the macroeconomic regulatory instruments during the pandemic times in Indonesia, OJK or Indonesian Financial Service Authority has actually issued 5 categories of policy for mainly for mitigating the financial risk for the property companies and also other sectors. But this stimulus policy aim also to what is to make recover or make like someone stepping out from his or her fall there are 5 instruments from the OJK. First, there is a special treatment for undertakings, including property undertakings, to obtain relaxations of credit because of the pandemic of COVID-19. However, when you see in the first box, this relaxations is subject to the principles of objectivity and prudential principles. And there are also the policy for increasing the relaxations of bank liquidity, like the placement of intermediate bank funds for mitigations of credits. And what would be relevant for the property sectors is also relaxations policy for microfinance undertakings. The fifth policy is of very importance for the property sectors in Indonesia, especially for property undertakings who providing houses and residence for middle and lower income level of societies. So when we take a look about the relaxations of credits and financings, the government of Indonesia has put priority for relaxations of credit to micro and medium undertakings, including also in property sectors, because the citizens or the people in Indonesia, although in spite of the pandemic times, they still requires the housings for their families and also for their businesses. So the government make a priority policy to provide relaxations of credit in amount of 4.55 million rupiah, especially for micro and medium undertakings. I'm sorry, I'm correct. The total amount of the relaxations of credits has been achieved more than 250.65 trillion rupiah until now. So the expectation of the government that the property sectors, especially the retail sector, or for the middle and lower income consumers, can be survive and can continually smoothly. So this is the from the macroeconomic regulatory instruments. Examples from the macroeconomic instruments that the property investors can utilize is the OJK regulations, namely the amendment of regulations of the Indonesian Financial Service Authority on limitations of credit provisions for land procurement by housing developers. So currently, there is a discourse during the decision makers to propose the amendment of Peraturan OJK number 44, 2070. So it is like relaxing for the developer, property developer, to get loans from banks during the pandemic times without imposing strict requirements for the developer of property. And the goal of the government and also the provincial government genuinely want to decrease the backlog of housings for the citizens. So this would be the rationale why the government issued the relaxations of regulations for the property developers. And now, allow me to share with you about the non-macroeconomic instruments that the property investors can basically utilize. There are three instruments from my point of view. There, I would like to ask your feedbacks, but this is my research results, and I want to have your feedbacks about my proposals. First, the property investors can invoke the force majeure provisions to get relaxations from his or her contractual obligations in the property sectors. For example, contractual obligations between the property developer and banks. Property developer can actually invoke the force majeure provisions to get uh, temporary exemption or temporary waiver of their obligations because of the force majeure circumstances of this COVID-19. And if we see the definitions of the force majeure in Indonesian civil law is not quite clear, but I want to share the definitions of force majeure from the UN Convention, which is also applicable in Indonesia. It states that a party is not liable for a failure to perform any of his obligations if he proves that the failure was due to an impediment beyond his or her control and that he or she could not reasonably be expected to have taken the impediment into account at the time of the conclusion of the contract, or to have avoided or overcome it or its consequences. The meaning of the force majeure is similar to the Indonesian Civil Code in Article 1244 and Article 1245. And I argue that the property investors can use these provisions to get relaxations from their contractual obligations, let's say towards the banking or financing undertakings. From my point of view, the force majeure are applicable to property investors because the pandemic event is unforeseeable. And the unforeseeable event was not the fault of the party invoking the force majeure defense. And basically the property investor arguably is acting in good faith or bona fide. And it is extensively recognized as one of the fundamental principles in the Indonesian contract law. So this would be the legal basis for the property developers on investor to invoke the relaxations of their contractual obligations, so they can continue their constructions or property projects. Yeah, for example, like to increase the backlog of housings in Indonesia. And secondly, there is also another instruments that investors of property can utilize, namely the rebus sic stantibus provisions. In English, it is translated as hardship. However, in Indonesian civil law, in Indonesian contractual law, the hardship provisions is not available. It is unfortunately, yeah, but this is my proposal to insert these provisions in Indonesian contract law. According to the UN conventions and unilateral principles of contract, a party in a contract, like investors of property or developers of property, can assert the impositions of rebus sic stantibus in their contractual obligations. Why? Because Indonesia has actually ratified the UN conventions. And if we look at the definitions of the hardship or rebus sic stantibus, it is applicable also to the pandemic circumstances like now. So we can argue that the pandemic crisis would be very justifications for the property investor or developers to invoke the releasing or relaxations of their contractual obligations. When we see the definitions of the hardship, it is stated that there is a hardship where the occurrence of events fundamentally alters the equilibrium of the contract, either because of the cost of a party performance has increased or because the value of the performance of a party received has diminished. And the events occur or become known to the disadvantaged party after the conclusion of contract. This would be applicable to property investors because they did not have a foreknowledge about the pandemic of COVID. And in B, state that the events could not reasonably have been taken into account by the disadvantaged party at the time of the conclusion of the contract. It is exactly the situations faced by the property investors. And lastly, the risk of the events was not assumed by the disadvantaged party. Arguably, I would propose that these provisions of hardship or rebus sextantibus must be invoked by the property investor or developers to get relaxations or waiver, temporary waiver of their contractual obligations, for example, towards the bank, so that they can continue their projects properly. However, they still need discussions with the banks. Hopefully, we can make forthcoming seminars with the bank, with the bank in Indonesia about the possibility of invoking relaxation of contractual obligations by using force majeure and hardship. However, until now, I have not found any explicit provisions or regulations in Indonesia that enables the hardship or rebus sectantibus for the investors or for property investors. This is actually a drawback for the Indonesian contractual law, especially because of the pandemic times, and argue that the Indonesian contract law must make a new provisions to insert the provisions of hardship so the property investors can get relaxation from their contractual obligations. And this would be the task of the Ministry of Justice. Okay, and lastly, my proposal would be to enable the real estate investment trust in Indonesia to support the continuing of the property projects in Indonesia, especially for the developers, so they can proceed with their property projects in Indonesia without profound obstacles. What I have learned, the real estate investment trust has been successfully applied in United States and also in Japan and also in Europe, especially after the economic crisis in the year 2000. And what I have learned from the German experience, they have also introduced this real estate investment trust to mobilize their property sectors. However, or unfortunately, in Indonesia, the legal provisions for the trust has not been available. Based on my research, I have not found any regulations which explicitly stipulate about the real estate investment trust. So this is actually the drawback of the legal system in Indonesia, in the sense that the legal system for the property sector is not responsive yeah, for the developments of the property projects and property businesses. Therefore, I argue that the Indonesian civil law and Indonesian contract law should enable the estate investment trust for the property projects for the future. That's all my presentations, and beforehand I would like to thank you and terima kasih for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dian. Very clear, very technical, and a lot of things that we could utilize. Actually, the main of this webinar is in Padian, and a lot of things that you have teach us today about the force major, even the 1244 and 1245, and the last but not least is the Rebus 60 syllabus. I would like to thank you, Mr. Dian, for your insight on this property